All right. So my talk is about human attributes prediction from privacy preserving conditions. And this work was done in collaboration with my supervisors, Dr. Professor Mohan Kankanhali, and my lab mate, Shen Jichi. And this work has been recently accepted at ASIM International Conference on Multimedia. So the agenda of this talk is, I will be starting off with the motivation and then our work contributions, that is new dataset proposal, empirical human study, computational modeling, and then the experiments. Finally, I will be concluding with the future work, ethical implications, and so on. So let me ask you this question. How would you feel if unknown to you, your photo is publicly available in a dataset? And worse, it can be labeled with some seriously offensive words. Okay, with the hope that I flipped you out, let me move on and list out some of the reasons as to why we need facial privacy. While there can be multiple reasons for it, let me list down a few. AI systems have advanced to the extent that highly sensitive attributes like religion, occupation, and even the health condition of a person can be inferred by simply using the facial information. And then there is abuse on online social networks, which can lead to gossips, blackmailing, embarrassments, and so on. And then there is inappropriate use by advanced algorithm, which can be put to malicious use. And finally, there is inappropriate use by authorities. One second, sorry. Yeah. So then there is inappropriate use by authorities. A very good example is the use of facial recognition in order to detect activists. So while facial privacy is important, we cannot deny that facial analysis indeed has many applications that can help people in general. But do we really need to rely on the facial information? Can we obtain the benefits without sacrificing our privacy? For better understanding, let me give you this example. The prospective use of facial recognition for authorization in MRTs is a bad idea. Now, why is it a bad idea? Because facial recognition will not only reveal someone's identity, but also the traveling habits. Now, this is clearly a breach of privacy. So simply using fare cards for authorization is enough rather than using facial recognition. The point that I want to make over here is that technologies should, where possible, aim to accomplish a task without compromising the privacy of a person. So the main problem is how to balance the trade-off between privacy and utility for visual analytics with faces. So our take on privacy utility trade-off is the utility that we have considered is the study of human attributes, that is age, gender, and emotion from image data. So throughout the talk, if I say attributes or human attributes, I mean age, gender, and emotion. And the privacy is the use of blocking obfuscation technique in order to prevent the identification of a person. And these are the different privacy scenarios that we have considered by incrementally increasing the face obfuscated region. And also you can see there is lower face blocking, which kind of replicates the pervasive use of mask in the current COVID situation. So moving on to our work contribution, first is the new data set. So firstly, the problem with the existing human attributes data set was that they are mostly face-centered, there is lack of context, and such data sets are not suitable for our study as we focus on images of non-face-centric people in unconstrained environments. And then there is overrepresentation of some groups, which can lead to bias. And then there are inadequate in sense having limited and noisy annotations and are not realistic. Like some of the data sets are just created out of web shows. So this is our new data set, that is diversity in people and context data set, DIPAC. Now this data set is unique in various ways. It consists of images in diverse settings. It is first data set of its kind to address geodiversity problem. It is annotated with face and body bounding boxes. It is taken in realistic settings. It has low face blurriness of the targets. And also it is rich with extensive human annotations like perceived emotion, age, gender, skin color, personality traits, social relations, and so on. So we believe that such intense labeling can help the research community with insightful analysis of human behavior. So next, moving on to this human psychophysics experiments. So before I dive into our human study, let me throw some simple terminologies that is very commonly used in psychology, and I will be using in the rest of the talk. So the target is the person whose attributes are to be predicted. Context is everything except for the target's head. Situational context is everything except for a target. So about our human study. So based on previous literature, we hypothesize that humans have an ability to recognize human attributes with considerable reliability under the absence of facial information. And we investigate this hypothesis with the help of our human study with eye tracking. So as you can see on the screen, we first collected the images from our DEPAC data set, and for each stimulus, we created 4 versions of it. First is the cropped obfuscated, where the target was cropped and face obfuscated. All obfuscated, where all the faces were obfuscated in an image. Target obfuscated, where only the target's face was obfuscated. No obfuscation, where none of the faces were obfuscated. We added this no obfuscation in order to collect a ground truth based on the majority voting by the participants, basically for data analysis. And as you can see, with each version, more information from an image was diverged. It was basically to understand how participants are using situational context in order to estimate the attributes. And this is the setup. So while the participant took the experiments, we recorded their eye movements with the help of the eye tracking device. The first question that needs to be answered is, how accurately can humans predict the attributes? Firstly, results are dependent on the choice of number of stimuli, age, gender, and emotion categories. And these are the categories that we have considered. These are similar to the DEPAC data set. So moving on to the result. So you can see from this graph, specifically from this pink bar, with an accuracy of approximately above 70%, participants were able to estimate the attributes. Now, this is encouraging since it suggests the potential to mimic such human behavior in machines. Next, we wanted to know what situational cues are exploited by an observer to estimate the human attributes. So we make 3 observations with supporting eye tracking data. Specifically, we use eye fixations and saccades with the assumption that humans make saccades to inspect salient locations. So we would expect attentional resources to be located around saccades. And also our results are statistically significant, and we did it with the help of ANOVA testing. So moving on to the observation, first is about a role of situational context in age and gender prediction. And it states that situational context can help in better understanding of age and gender of a target, and its contribution is higher on age than gender. Looking at this graph, one can see that, so from this graph, one can see that as one moves from cropped obfuscated to target obfuscated condition, there is an incremental increase in accuracy. However, this increment is more for the age estimation over gender estimation. And also from these images, they show that participant did use the situational context in order to estimate the age by further estimating the age of the teammates or from the relationship, or in some scenarios where the target was unrelated to the people around. In that case, situational context couldn't provide much of an information. Whereas in case of gender estimation, we did notice some scenarios where participant might have reasoned out from the situation context, where bodily cues were misleading, confusing, or insufficient. These scenarios include like a woman wearing military uniform, or even the gender of children can be difficult to predict. So the observation is about the role of situational context in emotion prediction. And it states that objects and background information have significant contribution for inferring a target's emotion. Like what is the background, whether it is a tourist spot or a protest, the kind of object a target is holding, the kind of objects they are in the background. This could be really helpful in inferring the attributes. And the last observation, this is quite interesting. It say that the emotions of socially interactive people in proximity to a target have a higher weight over the emotions of other people in an image. So from this graph, you can see that there is a significant improvement of around 14% of the participant when the faces of other peoples are made visible from all obfuscated to target obfuscated condition. And also these fixations, they show that people at the proximity of a target with certain interactions receive relatively higher intensity of fixation than people who are far away. So this is kind of consistent with research in another fields like psychology, which stated that comfortable spacing between people, it depends on social relationship and situation. So we also conducted a post-experiment survey in order to underpin the interpretation of the eye tracking data. In this survey, we asked the participant to list out the cues they used in order to infer the attributes of target in the images. And listed out are the most answered cues by the participants. So these answers are from the survey. They can be associated to a major extent with the eye fixations we saw in the observations. So that was about the human study. Let me move on to the computational modeling. So we propose this context-guided human attribute prediction network, CHAPNet. So the motivation behind the design of this model is to mimic human behavior for better explainability. So with this line of thought, we propose this model, and it is guided by our human findings. And it is an end-to-end multitasking human attributes classification deep learning model. So based on a human study where we saw participants, they relied on bodily cues and the situational context for inferring the attributes of a target, we designed the target branch and the situational context branch. And the features from the two branches are fused in order to predict the attributes. And also, since our model is designed in privacy settings, therefore, unlike the other models, we didn't explicitly encode the facial information. So let me describe the two branches in detail along with the supporting observations from our human study. First, the target branch. So the branch is designed to capture the pose-guided features of a cropped target. So before I move on to explaining what are pose-guided features and how specifically we capture them, let me explain the global features with which essentially extract global target features using the backbone as ResNet34. And we made stride changes in the convolutional layer of the original ResNet34 in order to capture larger spatial dimension, which is useful for disentangling information from a target person and occluded regions. So how does the target branch extract the pose-guided features? So firstly, it takes the crop target image as an input and it generates 18 pose landmarks using the open pose library. Each landmarks comes with XY coordinate and a confidence score. We use these landmarks to generate heat maps, and heat maps are set to 0, which have lower confidence score for the landmarks. And then these heat maps are element-wise multiplied with the global features. And finally, all the feature vectors are max pooled to fuse information from different visible target parts. So as you can see that these pose-guided feature, they kind of help in emulating isocards with the landmarks, and overall they help in capturing local features from different regions of a target. So that was about the target branch. Moving on to the next branch, that is situational context branch. So it consists of 3 streams. Each stream echo the idea from the observations that we made in our human study, that background information like events, scenes, and objects, they support human attributes interpretability. So let me go through each one of them. For the event stream, to capture event-related features like whether it is a beach party or a street protest, we use the pre-trained model on Places 365 dataset, which can be really helpful in effectively capturing event-related features. And then there is object stream, which basically captures the objects, including people from the image present in the background. And for that, we use pre-trained model on ImageNet dataset, which consists of approximately 22,000 categories of objects. Last stream in the situational context branches, the relationship stream. So in our human study, we learned that a target's sociodynamics with people and other interactions with the environment, it gave a better understanding of the attributes. Now, for capturing this information, we leverage graph attention network. And Firstly, the entire image is reduced in dimension and it is split into 30 by 30 patches. Now each patch is embedded as a vector and then represented at the nodes of the graph. And it also includes an additional node of embedded features from the crop target. So the nodes representing a target and the different regions of an image, they kind of help in capturing visual relationship with nearby people and objects. And also the attention mechanism of graph attention network, it can help in learning and allocating weights to the nodes of the graph. So people who are in proximity or the nearby objects can be given more weightage. So moving on to the last part of our contributions, that is the experiments. So we curated 3 data sets with face labels and having context. First is the emoting data set. It consists of around 23,000 images, 34,000 annotated targets. The source is web, and it consists of 26 emotion categories, 3 age categories, and binary gender. And then there is images of group data set, which consists of around 5,000 images, 28,000 annotated targets. Source is Flickr, and it consists of 7 age categories and binary gender. And also, there is significantly higher number of faces that are annotated for images of group dataset, and existing models have been using cropped and aligned faces as an input in their models to predict the attributes. Now, this is in contrast to our model, where I demonstrated that in our model design, we use the entire target and the situational context as an input. Now, this is important while I'll be reporting the results on our data set. And then lastly, there is a KRS data set, which basically consists of mostly target. So that is why the size and the number of annotated targets are similar. That is 70,000. And the source is TV shows, and it only consists of 7 emotion categories. So let me report the state of the art as in comparison with the state of the art models. So our model is primarily designed for the privacy setting. And we first tested out its performance with intact faces, that is no obfuscation, on benchmark datasets. And as you can see from this table, that with an accuracy of around 88.31%, our model is able to outperform all the comparison models by a large margin. And it is also competitive on the emoting dataset. Now, there are some unreported results because of the lack of implementation knowledge of those models. And for the images of group dataset, as I stated previously, unlike ours, which is trained on the whole image, the comparison model take cropped and aligned faces as input. And due to this huge difference in training samples distribution, we do not report the results here. So I'll be reporting the performance of ChapNet on DPAC and images of group dataset with intact faces in the later slides in the privacy settings. So we automated the face obfuscation scenarios by using the open face library. This library generated 7 facial landmarks, and we used these landmarks in order to estimate the area to obfuscate. So these are the privacy settings that we have considered. Let me go through each one of them. First is the target obfuscation, where only the target's face was obfuscated in all the images. All obfuscation, where all the faces in all the images were obfuscated. Now, this is an ideal setting where every person, including accidental people like the bystanders in an image, are de-identified, and a training dataset can reach maximum privacy protection. And then there is partial obfuscation, where only fraction of training images are obfuscated. So the images with face obfuscation can be of people whose images are web crawled without consent. And with no obfuscation can be of consented users, donors, or public figures. Okay, so we applied each of the 4 face obfuscation scenarios under the target obfuscation and all obfuscation condition. So the first 2 conditions that I stated. And we exhaustively applied each of the privacy scenarios on DPAC and the benchmark datasets. So for the KRS datasets, since more than 83% of the images, they contain a single face, therefore for completeness, we consider the extreme case, that is all obfuscated. So let me just quickly summarize the result of this table. So with monotonic decrease in performance, So there is a monotonic decrease in performance with the increase in area under the face obfuscation. And this is quite intuitive. And also we observed that the rate of change, it differed across the data sets due to the difference in distribution of the data sets and attributes categories. And even under the best privacy scenarios, that is head obfuscation, the model is able to perform far better than the chance level. Now, this is remarkable given the human attributes prediction, they significantly rely on facial features. And also for target obfuscated versus all obfuscation condition, we didn't see any common pattern. There was minimal impact on classification accuracy of human attributes when all the faces are obfuscated. It kind of suggests that ChapNet is effectively able to capture information from the situational context. So the next question to answer is, does the model discards the hidden facial features under the strict privacy condition? Well, yes, it discards the hidden facial features, but it learns the contextual information. As you can see from these visualizations, that the model is discarding features from the hidden region of a face, like the eye region, the lower face region, the face, or the entire head. The highlighted regions, they suggest that the model picks features from visible bodily cues like the accessories, clothing, skin, or the hairs. So this kind of aligns with a human study where participants relied heavily on bodily cues for human attributes prediction under face obfuscation. Next question to answer is, can the model perform better under partial privacy? So similar to the previous behavior, we observed that with the increase in face obfuscated region, the model started relying on bodily cues. Similarly, here as well, with the increasing partial privacy, that is increase in training images with obfuscated faces, the model weights more on bodily cues since it starts suppressing the facial information. And also with 25% partial privacy, you can see from this table, 25% partial privacy means that 25% of the images are face obfuscated. The model is able to achieve intact face level performance with less than 2% accuracy drop. So this 0% is basically no obfuscation, 0% partial privacy, 0% of the images are face obfuscated. And also similar to our human findings, age and emotion prediction is significantly impacted by the loss of facial information. And also we suggest that partial privacy can be considered over strict privacy, since partial privacy can give boost in the performance of human attributes classification. So let me summarize the observations. And overall, our results are encouraging to indeed consider analytics with privacy. So we saw that with incremental face obfuscation, it led to decrease in classification accuracy. Even under the extreme privacy scenario, that is strict privacy with full head obfuscation, model was able to perform far better than the chance level. And then the model design can be used to analyze other human attributes like race, ethnicity, personality traits, and so on. And then we saw minimal difference in the model's performance between target obfuscated and all obfuscated condition, which further suggested the model's efficacy in learning contextual cues for human attributes prediction. And then with 25% partial privacy, one can achieve intact face level performance with less than 2% accuracy drop. And lastly, strict privacy might not be suitable for human attributes like emotion, since it is greatly impacted by face obfuscation. So let me conclude with the limitations, future work, and ethical implications. First is the limitations. So we observed scenarios where model picked up contextual bias. Looking at these visualization, so because the man is wearing some floral costume or some floral accessories, that is why under the privacy setting, that is head obfuscation in this case, and because under the head obfuscation model start picking up the contextual cues, it is giving the wrong prediction, predicting male as female. However, it is making the right prediction under no obfuscation condition when the model is relying on the facial features. So context can be biased or insufficient, and face might be a better estimator of the attributes in certain scenarios. And then in the target branch, we observed that the features got extracted by nearby and occluding people, which led to poor feature representation. So such kind of Such kind of problems can be tackled by using image segmentation, where the target can be segmented properly. And then lastly, even though we have considered the strict obfuscation technique, that is blocking over blurring or pixelation or cartooning, but still existing literatures have shown that by using multiple images of a face obfuscated person, there is a possibility to identify them. And besides, an attacker's prior knowledge can be another threat to an individual's identity. So overall, obfuscating head regions does not guarantee privacy, and stricter privacy settings can be considered. So our ongoing and future work includes, we want to develop more facial analytics for other attributes like race, ethnicity, personality traits, social roles, and so on. Video analytics is crucial. The impact of motion clue is not clear. We also want to explore bias in using the features from visible skin region. In our dataset, we have already provided the skin color annotation by using one of the established dermatological metric, that is individual typology angle. And also, given we automated the different face obfuscation scenarios, we observed that the automated face detectors gave absurd outputs for occluded and articulated faces. So human intervention can improve face obfuscation. Next is the ethical implications. So attributes can be deemed private in order to prevent abuse and discrimination. That discrimination can be against women, or there can be unconsented commercial use, like advertisements by social networking sites like Facebook, and then exploiting contextual cues for inferring attributes of a de-identified person in visual data can potentially pose serious ethical concerns. Now, there is an important message that we want to communicate, that is, we advocate the use of facial analytics only for ethical applications. So let me summarize our work. That is, humans indeed use contextual cues for determining facial attributes related to emotion, age, and gender. ChapNet is inspired by human studies, which privacy-aware facial attributes analytics reasonably well. Now, this is an important and exciting area, since more and more images and videos with humans are being created and shared. And privacy is a growing concern both for users and for regulatory agencies. And lastly, an important takeaway is that AI systems have started becoming better at their tasks. It is high time to consider privacy protection of individuals. So thank you. And here is the link and QR code to our code and dataset.
Thank you so much, Anshu, for the talk. Yeah, so I think we can leave the screen there for people to take note. Yeah, so any questions?